Greetings and hello, BUSN 1360 Software Applications for Business. I'm Dr. McGrory, I'm your instructor, and today we conclude our study of Excel with the Excel Capstone. This is your opportunity to demonstrate all that you've learned from the Excel chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, where you were being instructed and we were doing teaching and talking about why we were doing things and how to do those steps. And today we're putting all of that together in a 4-page, 32 step grader. So I'm going to do some things a little bit differently, and I want to tell you about that. But before I do want to remind you of something about the grader, and that is that it is 2 parts. So please remember that. The first part is the grader. That's what we're working on together today. So when you submit the grader, you get that score. And when the score is 70% or above, which you should definitely have because we're doing this together, right? You're going to get that 70% or above. Then the second part becomes available. You'll see the second part, which is the quiz. You'll see that. But when you try to click on it, it will not open until you have a 70% or more on the grader. So don't forget that. Now the quiz is going to be very interesting because it's going to ask you to use some of the work that you've done in the grader to answer some of the quiz questions. So very powerful, I think, this capstone. And another reminder, if you make 90% or above on the grader, Pearson will send you a digital badge that you can display on digital resume sites, for example, or on any social media just to kind of brag a little bit about, hey, look what I've accomplished. So I hope you will be proud of yourself. But both parts. Now, here's what I wanted to explain to you as being just a little bit different. I'm going to go through these instructions, which again, that's a 4-page packet of instructions. But instead of going back and forth between the instructions and the Excel spreadsheet and kind of adding explanations as we go, this is the capstone. So I'm going to go through a page of instructions at a time, and I'm going to call out that we're on step 1 or step 2, but it's going to be a little bit faster on this particular capstone assignment. For the chapters, I'm going to return back to the regular style because it's important that you have that extra explanation that surrounds the chapter grading. That's part of the learning process. But for the capstone, we're going to pick up the pace a little bit. At this point, you are well familiar with downloading those files, saving them into a folder where that is well organized. So I hope you've already done that. I've already done that, and I've already opened up the Excel spreadsheet. So when I look at this spreadsheet, this workbook, I see that I have 4 spreadsheets, 4 worksheets inside. Sheet 1, here's DC 2020, places, and cities. Now I'm going to go back to sheet 1, that's where we're going to begin, but be very aware as you go through these instructions that we're going to be changing to different worksheets, so it's important to catch those changes. So that was step 1. Step 2 says in sheet 1 that we need to rename it. So I'm going to double click and I'm going to type in DC 2017. Whenever I finish typing, I need to press the enter key to let Excel know that I'm done. It then tells me that I want to take this year completed column, so F3 through F9, and I want to move it between the memorial and the 2002 column. So I want to move it between here. So move is just another way of saying cut and paste. So I'm going to right click on top of that, cut, and I know I want to insert it right before 2002. So I'm going to click on the word 2002, cell B3. I'm going to right click and look at my option, insert cut cells. I'm going to do that. Notice how it pushed all that data. It did not overwrite it. It pushed it over into the other columns because it inserted it. Remember our menu choice. So that was step 3. Save that. And let's go on to step 4. We now want to insert a row between rows 2 and 3. So I'm going to click on row 3 and right click because I always go after where I want to insert. And I've got insert on my right click menu, And sure enough, here's my blank row inserted right above, row 3. So it's the new row 3. Row 3. Save that. And that was step 4. Let's go on to step 5. There's a change here. Catch this worksheet change. We need to go to the next tab of our workbook, DC 2020. So I've got that selected. I'm already positioned at cell A1, and they want me to run spell check. So we know that's under review. It's this very first button, and it says memorial is misspelled, change. And it found visitors was misspelled, change. So 2 misspellings, okay, save that. That was step 5. So let's go on to step 6. With step 6, we're going to format these titles a little bit. Notice that on this worksheet, we have a new area down here, trend, a new column. Now, we don't have a label in cell A4, but they are asking us to format that anyway. And so it's important we do that. So I'm going to select from A4 to G4. And the first thing they want me to do is to wrap the text so that this year completed especially displays on 2 lines. So on the Home tab, go across, wrap text. Notice that year completed now looks a little better, but that formatting has been applied to all the cells that were selected. Another part of this instruction is that we are to center this text horizontally. So up here at the top, still on the Home tab, center. Finally, we are to apply a blue fill color to these cells that we have selected. So the fill color is going to be under the bucket. It's a blue color, so there's more than one blue column here, but I'm going to this furthest one. And they want blue accent 5, 60%. So it's this one, 60% fill color. See how my cells are shaded in? Save that. I'm double checking that completes step 6. Now step 7 also has multiple parts, and in step 7 we're going to work on this title. So the title is right now in cell A1, but they want it to go across from A1 to G1. So select all those cells, and they want to merge and center. Once that's done, we're going to apply a blue accent cell style. So on this Home tab, look here, Styles, and you're going to want to click to expand that. Now this time they just want this blue accent 5 cell style. So it's very, very bold there. And speaking of bold, they want us to bold that. So 3 parts to that step. We merged and centered, we applied the cell style, and then we bolded. Save that. That was step number 7. On to step 8. For step number 8, we're going to change the width of this column. So I've got my mouse positioned on top of the column letter. I'm going to right click, see how it's selected all that, and I'm going to go down to column width. And 34 is the column width, and I'm just going to press enter. And I see that it stretched that column out. It's looking good. Save that. And let's go on to step 9, and we're already at the end of this first page with step 9. So with step 9, they want us to select the data from C5 all the way over here to F10. And that's because we're going to make spark lines under this column. So we begin by selecting. We do this commonly in Excel, where we begin by selecting the data that we're going to use. I'm going to go to Insert, and then as I look across, here's spark lines, and specifically I want the line. Now, since I selected that data range, it's already got that in there, and it says, where do you want to locate that? I'm going to move this box, because with my insertion point in the location range, I'm going to select G5 through G10. Now that I've got this dialog box completed, click OK. Oh, look at that. Nice spark lines. So that is actually the end of page 1 of the instructions. That is step 9. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to get a quick sip of water, and we're going to go on to step 10 on page 2. On the top of page 2 of the instructions, step 10, we still have G5 through G10 selected, and we're going to put some markers, but not just any markers. We want the high point markers, so I'm going to select that. See how in my graph in these spark lines only the high point is selected? And they want us to color that. So over here where it says marker color, click on the drop down box. Make sure you go to high point and then dark red. Excellent. Save that. That was step 10. On to step 11. Now step 11, we're going to further visualize this information because we're going to create a chart. So we're going to select A4. Even though there's no data in A4, because that's in essence our label. It needs to be consistent as we select the remaining data. A4 through A10, hold your control key down, C4 through F10. As a reminder, if you have some mobility issues or if it's just very difficult with the mouse in your computer configuration, don't forget that you can go up to this name box and you could type A4 colon A10 comma C4 colon F10, and that would select that entire range. So with that selected, we're going to make a chart. So we're going to insert, and they told us that we're to make a clustered column chart. So here's my column button. If I click that and I look at the very first one, it tells me this is a clustered column. I'm going to select that. Wow, that's a really beautiful chart, isn't it? Looks good. They then tell us we're going to do some formatting. It's important to understand in this particular case, they are not using a style. They say they want the monochromatic palette 12 chart color, not chart style, but chart color. So with my chart selected, and it has the dots going around it and no dots inside. Right now we're working with the entire chart. To the left of my chart style, so I'm on chart design. And if I look over here, chart colors, they have colorful and they have some palettes there. But as I continue to look through, here's that monochromatic. Now, these are not individual tiles of color like we're used to when we're selecting font. It's the whole row that we're looking at. So it starts at palette number 1 under monochromatic, but they want us to select palette 12. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit and let's see, this green one is 6. That one is 8. Let me go down. If I come all this next blue one, this kind of darker blue, this is monochromatic palette 12. So I'm going to click on that. If you look at your chart, only blue bars, different shades of blue bars. This might make it easier if you are printing to a black and white laser printer, or you're going to photocopy this on a black and white copier. It might make the bars a little easier to see. So it looks good. Let's save that. That was step number 11. Oh, but we're not finished. There's another part to step 11. It says apply the gradient fill to the chart area. Now, when they say chart area, if you have any confusion on this, don't forget that under this format tab, you can use this to identify what is selected, which it is the chart area. The dots are all the way around, but you also can use this drop down box to select parts of the chart to be very, very accurate. Well, I'm just going to click that arrow again because I don't need that. The chart area is selected. Now I'm going to format it, so I could right click and then select format, but I'm right here, and so I'm going to go ahead and click format selection, which opens up this panel on the side. Now by default, the paint bucket is the icon that is selected, and that's perfect for this because I'm going to affect the fill, expand that, and they want us to choose the gradient fill. And they do tell us do not change the default gradient options. So we're going to leave it just like that. Looks good. Now we're finished with step 11. Let's save that and let's go on to step 12. In step 12, it says we need to move this chart very precisely to put it where we need to put it. So we know that move is another way of saying cut and paste, which is what they tell us to do. My chart is selected. I'm going to go to the Home tab just so you can see. I'm going to cut. You could control, X, for example. Click A13, and then I'm just going to paste, which remember is Control V. Now that I have moved the chart, I need to change the height and the width of the chart. So I want that container to be resized. So my chart is still selected. On my ribbon, I'm going to go to Format for the chart, and here's the height and width. And so the height is 6, enter. And I see my chart is already changing, but I also need to change the width. And so the width is supposed to be 7, enter. So now my chart has been resized. But I have one more task with this chart, and I want to scroll up so that you can see it. Oops. So here's my chart. And if you are working on an older version of Excel, we're going to add alt text. And remember that you can add alt text in older versions, but you have to go under text and then go to properties. Well, in the newer versions of Excel, like this Excel 2021, it's become such a important feature, and I'm glad that that has been recognized, that all we have to do is, for example, right-click anywhere on the chart and look. Here it is, Edit, Alt, Text, and I'm going to click that. And they tell us, and we want to be really careful as we type this in, to type the chart shows the number of visitors to each memorial for 4 years. Once you have that typed in, you definitely want to save that. I can close this alt text panel. I don't need that anymore. I may still need my panel for formatting over here, so I'm going to keep this open. Let me double check that we've completed all parts of step 12. We have, so let's move on to step 13. Now, step 13 also has multiple parts, and it says that, first of all, we need to affect the chart title. So I need to scroll up just a little. Here's my chart title. So I want to make sure that I have it selected. So I'm going to click one time on chart title. When I click one time on chart title, I see these dots around chart title. If you accidentally or for some reason you double click, you will see that insertion point typing. Now, I do want to explain this one little piece. I can type like this, and I can put the chart title in here. And in real life, that's actually a method that I very commonly use. But we know that the automatic grader is looking for something different. And so I want to point out why they are looking for something different. So if you have that insertion point, we don't want that. Click away somewhere. Click to select the chart. Pause. Click the chart title one time. What we're going to do now is we're going to click in the formula bar like we did in previous chapters, and this is where we're going to type the chart title. And the reason is that as we affect this chart title box, we really are updating the properties of the object that is the chart title. So rather than putting a value into it, we're going to set it as a property. That's what the automatic grader is looking for. It's probably a little more proper to do it this way, and so let's do that. They want us to put as the chart title annual visitors. Check your spelling on that. Once you have it in there, click enter or press your enter key to make sure that is set up. That chart title box is still selected, and we're going to apply a font color to that. Now, it does say font color, and I do see text fill up here, but I know that automated grader can sometimes be a stickler, so I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I'm going to use my traditional font coloring button here. When I hover over it, it even calls it font color. So I'm just being extra careful on this. Click on this drop down arrow, and I'm looking for blue accent 5, but specifically 25%. So here it is. All right, that's looking good. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see the whole chart at one time. There we go, a little bit better. So now I have this chart and it's all displayed on my screen. They did want the chart title formatted, but they also want the category axis label formatted with that accent 5, darker 25. So on my Format tab, I'm going to use my drop-down box and I'm going to select Horizontal Category Axis. If I look down towards the bottom, I see the dots, the selection dots, are around my category axis. With that selected, I'm just going to go back to the Home tab. I'm going to use my font color button. And again, blue accent 5, 25% darker. Save that. We're not done with this step yet. Multiple parts to this. It says we also want to change the value access display units to millions. Well, when I look at the side of my chart, I see all those zeros. This is what I want to change. If you would like to click that, just make sure you have the correct things selected. If there's any doubt, and I'm just going to remove all doubt, I'm going to go to Format. It says vertical axis, so I feel good, but if you want to select it this way, click on that drop-down box, vertical value axis. So with this selected, I still have my formatting panel open, and of course I'm working with data labels, so click on that. And I'm going to expand my axis options. As I look down through here, display units, millions. And I can see that my axis changed. I've got that little word millions over there. This is looking good. Now, another thing that is part of this step, we have another piece to this, is that we want to add some vertical grid lines they call primary minor. Well, whenever I want to add something to a chart, I'm going to use this plus sign. And they want grid lines. Now, I do see that grid lines is already checked. That just means one of the many options is already applied. I'm going to click that arrow. So I see I have primary horizontal, right? You see the big bars on the chart? Well, now they want me to add primary minor vertical. I click that. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the video, but can you see these very, very light blue or white lines going through the blue here? Just gives it more of that, charted graphed feature. So I'm done with this. I need to click my plus sign again to close that up. And let me double check. Step 13 is done. Save that. On to step 14. For step 14, they want us to add data labels, and we are particularly interested in only one of these bars, and that is the bar for 2020. Do you see that that's the bar on the end? It's that very dark blue. If I click any one of those bars, and I click it only one time, that's very important, only one time. Do you see how the selection dots are around each and every one of the bars? Now, what if you only see dots around one of your bars? What that means is that you clicked it again. See how now I have dots only around one? Now, that's not what I want, so what am I going to do? I'm going to click away somewhere, and then I'm going to click again, and I'm going to make sure that the dots are only around that data series. With that data series selected, I want to add labels. So I'm going to go to my plus sign, data labels, and I'm going to use the arrow, and they wanted it on the outside end. Click that. So now I can see they're applied. I'm going to close this up. And these are millions, right? 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 2 million, all the way across. So it looks good, but because it's millions, even one number past this, 1, 2, 3, is going to be 100,000, right? So we want to display a little bit more. So we want to change the display of these data labels. Click any one of those data labels. When you do, all of those data labels should have the dots around it. Once you have all those selected, I want you to come back over here to your Format Data Labels. And remember, we're interested in data labels, so click that icon. Down towards the bottom, do you see this number category? Click to expand. And currently, those numbers are just formatted generally. Click on that drop-down box and pick number. They want us to change that to 1 decimal place. Right now it's 2 decimal places, so I'm going to just delete that, select it, and type 1, and then enter. Once you press that enter key, Excel will accept that value, and you should see your data labels update so that they display only 1 decimal point. Go ahead and save that because that's really good work. And that was step 14. Big change on step 15, we're changing to the next spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and do that, and that is places. Now places looks very familiar. This is a big data set, like the tables that we worked with. I don't think I'm going to need this panel open on the side anymore, so I'm going to close that. And as I look at this, this is all nicely formatted, and they want me to change this. Well, actually, they want me to make an update first. As they look at city, they say somebody has put in an abbreviation, BOS for Boston. Every place it says this BOS, we want to change this to Boston. So on my home tab, I'm going to go to this Find and Select, Replace, Find What, BOS, Tab, down to Replace With, and type Boston. Check your spelling. Now, if you are a little nervous that you might have BOS someplace in here, and you might need to find next and replace it only after you have verified it. So you got to think about that. Because this is part of our instructions, I feel a little comfortable saying replace all. It says 13, so if you've got 142, that's a problem. Okay, if you have 1, that's a problem. 13, you need 13, click OK. And close that and save that, because that was step 15. On to step 16. We are actually going to make this data set a table. So of course, we're going to start out by selecting it. Now I'm going to select this very quickly. So I'm going to start out here in cell A1. I'm selecting, and I'm going to put my arrows on superpower, Control, Shift, right arrow, Control, Shift, down arrow. Selected that entire table or data set at this point. Insert, Table. It says, okay, is the range A1 through D40? It is, and our table does have headers. Okay. Now, it has a default format on the table, but this is not what we want. And in fact, first we need to name this table. So it's still selected. I'm on Table Design. Up here where it says Table 1, we're going to type tourist, no spaces. Since we cannot have spaces, we have an underscore there. That's like shift and hyphen. That's your underline character. Tourist underscore attractions. When we're finished typing, we need to double check our spelling and then press the enter key. Now, it's human if you've just made a spelling mistake. So as a quick reminder, if you misspelled that table name, go to Formulas. This is where you will find this big Name Manager button. When you open Name Manager, you'll see that name that you just put in, and you can edit or delete or whatever you need to do there to fix your error. So close that. That's just a little quick reminder in case you ran into a little trouble there. We still have the table selected, and now we're going to format it. So I'm going to go back to Table Design. And they want us to use a table style. So here are my table styles. Click to expand. They talk about table style light 13. So light is a very key word because it's up here. See the categories? Light, medium, dark. So here's light, and they want blue 13. So here's a blue one. Oh, that's it. That's good. I thought it might be this one, but that's 20. So this is 13. Blue table style light 13. And man, that's looking good, isn't it? Go ahead and save that because that was step number 16. On to step 17. Now, step 17, I'm going to click anywhere inside my table. It is a very good idea on their part because when you have a table like this and you scroll, it's nice because you do still keep your column labels, your field names is what I would call them, up at the top. See how my column A is now called sightseeing, column B is now city. That's great, except I lose track of the fact that this is A and this is B and this is C. And if I had 20 columns, that could get a little confusing, especially if I had things above this as we did in our previous chapter graders. So what they are asking us to do is to freeze the first row. So I'm anywhere in my table, it doesn't matter here. I'm going to go to the view because this is how I view my table, and I'm going to freeze. And one of my options here is to freeze the top row. Click that. When I did, one thing I want to point out to you is, do you see that this particular line of between rows is a little darker than the regular Excel worksheet? That's how Excel tries to alert you to the fact that this row is frozen. Of course, you'll know that because as you start to scroll, look what happens. I still see my column labels, A, B, C, D, and I see the labels themselves. I see my column letters and I see my column labels. So I get to see both this way, which is kind of a nice thing, okay? So save that. That was step 17. On to step 18. With step 18, we're going to sort our data to get organized a little bit. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I'm going to come down to my Sort button way down here. And I'm going to do a custom sort because I'm going to do two sorts at the same time, one sort within another. First, I'm going to sort by city. And they said in alphabetical order. Well, A to Z is what we mean when we say alphabetical. Then we're going to add another sort level. We're going to sort by the location, sightseeing location. That sort is also alphabetical. Click OK. Let's double check. First, I see my cities, Boston, Philadelphia. Now within Boston, I start out B, F, K. Yes, this looks alphabetical. Then I get to Philadelphia and it starts over again. B, C, E, right? Alphabetical again. So the first sort happened, and within that sort, the second sort happened. Excellent. Save that, and guess what? We are at the end of page 2. So that means time for a sip of water, stretch real quick, and we'll continue on. Yay! So we're at the top of page 3, step 19. We are just steadily moving through. And step 19 brings up something very important and a mistake that I commonly see in tables. What I commonly see is that someone will insert a row. For example, after Boston, somebody will insert a row and they'll put a total. Well, remember, that breaks the relationship because all of this is supposed to be time needed, not time needed and then suddenly a sum or an average, some aggregate. You can't break up the fee and then suddenly put a total in. These are individual values. But in step 19, they're telling us that they want a total row at the bottom of the table. And that is something that Excel can do for you. So if I scroll down, and I'm just going to, I can click anywhere in this table, and I'm going to right click, go to table, and then totals row, and look at row 41. Row 41 is now an Excel operated row. It's very special because it is not going to be caught up in the sorts. Okay, so let Excel do that totals row for you. In this total rows, by default, it's sums. And you know that because you'll see subtotal up there. But we're going to change this. I've clicked in cell D41. Drop down, average is what they want. Average. If you can see up here, now it's got the average. That looks yucky because we don't need to know that it's approximately that the time needed is the average is 70.38461,538. We don't need that. They want us to format this a little better. So with cell D41 selected, we're just on the Home tab. We're going to come up here to the numbers, and instead of general, we're going to choose number. Now, 2 decimal places, is okay, but still it's a little specific for just an average of the time needed. So I'm going to come up here again to numbers, and I'm going to use my decrease decimal button once, twice. So now I have just the whole number. That looks better. As a final touch over here in cell A41, this is not a total anymore. This is an average, and they're telling us to type average time. And I'm just going to tab. That looks a lot better. It is more descriptive. It's more appropriate to what that value is. So this is looking good. That was step 19. Let's save that. On to step 20. We want to apply conditional formatting. We want to highlight the times over 60 minutes. Now I am down here in cell, at the end of the table. So I'm going to click in cell D40, and I want to select everything, not the totals row, everything from D40 up to the top of my data. So how can I do that quickly? Control, Shift, up arrow. But there's a little bit of a problem here because I can see that I have selected the label. The green border goes all the way around that, and my row 1 even shows I'm selected. No problem. Hold your Shift key down, not the Control key, just Shift. Down arrow 1 time. So you selected a little too much. No problem. Keep the Shift key held down, arrow back 1. So that's what we did. We went down 1. Now cells D2 through D40 are selected. What is selected is going to be affected. So we're going to conditional formatting, and we are working with numbers, and it's anything over 60 minutes. So highlight cells greater than 60. And they want them to be formatted with light red fill. Now, don't be fooled here because this is a kind of an easy mistake to make. This does say light red fill, but it also says with dark red text color. If I click on my drop-down box, look at this, light red fill. They didn't specify the text color, so just light red fill. Okay. So my numbers are still black, but the background color is now that red. That is step 20. So let's go ahead and save that. On to step 21. So step 21, they want us to filter to show our fees that are less than or equal to $10. So click on the drop-down arrow for fees. I'm going to use my numbers filter. Now they did say less than or equal to $10, so 10. And I do see my numbers are in blue, and I can even see between, for example, 16 and 18, row 17 is hidden, so it's been filtered out. And if you just want to glance at your numbers, I'm just going to click away someplace. I'm just making sure there's nothing over $10. It looks good. Save that. Step 22, very important. We're changing to a new worksheet. We're going to our last worksheet, which is cities. All right, last worksheet, moving right along. Now, as I look at this cities worksheet, it looks to me like a dashboard where I'm going to have all my information displayed. Very quick and easy, what's going on with a trip, right? So nice to look at. The first thing they have up here is today's date, and they want us to put in here, and this is step 22, a function that will display today's date. Well, we learned this in a past chapter, and that's the today function. Since I already know this function, I'm just going to type it in. All formulas start with an equal sign. The name of the function is today, if I can spell that. All functions have parentheses, and inside the parentheses we put the arguments that the function needs. The today function doesn't need any arguments, so we just open the parenthesis and close it. Enter. And sure enough, there's today's date. For me, you might be looking at this in a future semester, a future year. We're time traveling. All right, so we have finished step 22, and we are proud, and we're going to save that, and then we're going to move on to step 23. Now, step 23 tells us that we need to calculate the rental car for our cost. So we're going to display that right here on our spreadsheet in cell F4. So how do I calculate rental car cost? Well, I need to know how many days I've traveled. So that's going to be my return date minus my departure date, right? In this case, looks like about 6 days, but that could change. Maybe I can't go that long. Maybe I'm going to go longer, right? This could change. So I need to calculate that, not type the value. And then I'm going to multiply however many days that is times the cost per day. And that's over here. Okay, so this is just some calculator stuff that we would do. How do we turn on the calculator in Excel? We power up math with an equal sign. All formulas start with an equal sign. So what am I going to have to do first? Well, I'm going to take my return date minus my departure date. That should give me 6 days. And then what I want to do is I want to take those 6 days and I want to multiply that times 50. Do you think that's what's going to happen? I don't think so, because PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, tells us that this multiplication will happen first. That's not what we intended. We intended 6 days to be multiplied by $50, not the number that this date of June 20th, 2024 represents. Also, isn't it just more clear if we put parentheses to signal our intention? This way, when somebody else looks at this, they go, okay, what are they doing? Oh, well, first, they're saying B3 minus B2. Then they're multiplying by F3. So it's more clear, and it's correct, because it's going to be incorrect unless we put those parentheses. You may have noticed that I am not using absolute values for any of this. This formula is not going to be copied down into other cells, so it's fine just the way it is. Once you have it set up, hit enter. $300, that sounds correct, because this is 6 days times 50, 6 times 5 is 30, so 300. Sounds good. Save that. That was step 23. On to step 24. Now, step 24 looks a little bit like a doozy, but it's not really that bad. When we look, it says we're going to go to cell E14, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to decide if we should put the shuttle trip, if we're going to take the shuttle, that's $80. If we're going to take the rental car, we need to know the days, we need this $300 value here. Well, how do we know? Well, it depends on the city, and so we've already put on our spreadsheet yes or no for the rental car. We're either taking the rental car or we're going to take the shuttle. So how do we decide what cost to put here? Do we put $80 here, or do we put $300? We do not want to type that, because if something changes, we would have to remember to go change it back. We want the computer to do that. So yes, we're going to use the if function. Now, as I read this block of instructions, and as I look at the question here, rental car, what I interpret these instructions to say is that my yes/no question is going to be worded as no. So I want my true/false answer to be based on the no answer, if that makes sense. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I am going to use the insert function here to let Excel guide me. Now, if you've used if, you will see it in your list of frequently used functions. If not, type it up here and click go and you'll see it. But here's if. Okay. So what is the test? Well, the test is what is in column C14? That's the question, right? Now, thinking ahead, I'm going to copy this formula. Do I want C14 then to become C15, C16, C17? I do. So it's okay for this to be a relative value. I want to always think like this when I know I'm going to copy that formula. So what is my question? My question is C14 equal to, now what is your question? Is it equal to yes or is it equal to no? I believe they're asking, is it equal to no? And no is a text value. And anytime I'm talking about the literal definition of this text value, I'm going to put it inside of quotes. Okay, so I've got my quotes there. Is it case sensitive? I don't think so. I tell you what, I will leave mine lowercase so that you will know whether it's case sensitive or not. I've got lowercase in there. Now look at this. It's already evaluated this and it said, you know what? The answer to that's going to be true. So the next line down here says, if it's true, what do you want me to do? Well, if there's no rental car, then I'm going to take the shuttle. So I'm going to click on F2. That's my shuttle cost. Thinking ahead, I'm going to copy this formula into these other ones. Do I want this to then go to F3 and then F4 and then F5 as I copy this formula? No, this needs to be locked down. I am making this an absolute reference. They just told us to be appropriate on this. For me, I always use absolute unless I have a specific need to use a mixed reference. So if you want to try a mixed reference, go ahead. I'm going to put an absolute here. Maybe you can post in the comments if the automated grader counts it correct with a mixed reference. Now, what if C14 does not equal no? It equals something else. What should I do if it's false? Well, that means that I do need a rental car in our case. And so that means I need the value from F4. Thinking ahead, do I need to lock that? You know I do. You're going to do it already. Let me catch up to you. F4. So let's look at this. It evaluates as true, which means the answer is 80. That's exactly what I want, the shuttle cost. If it were to evaluate false, we'll see that as we copy this formula, so we'll check that out. Click OK. I'm going to show you a mistake that I frequently make, and the instructions are going to call you out on this. The grader will call you out because they specifically caution against this. I have this formula and I'm ready to copy it. I know that's what I'm going to do, so I grab that fill handle and I copy it down. And I don't notice as I'm looking at it because I look at the values. Let's check those. They look good, don't they? $300. Any place that it says yes, and that's correct. And I could click on those to double check. Looks good. Now, as I click on these to double check my formula, did you catch the problem? I just wiped out some of my formatting. My beautiful little table right here in this big thick border is now gone. And that's not what I want. So undo. What I want to copy is this formula, but only the formula, not the formatting. So select E14 and copy, then select the cells that you wish to paste into, and instead of doing a regular paste, use the drop-down button, find this button for pasting the formulas only, and click that. Now, I don't see it immediately, and I can double check my formulas, but as I'm double checking my formulas to make sure they copied correctly, I also see that I did not wipe out the formatting on this last cell. So looks good. My formulas are copied. My formatting is intact. It's safe. Let's save that. Let me just double check. That looks like step 24. On to step 25. Now, step 25 is a good one because it gives us an opportunity to use the VLOOKUP function. As a reminder, VLOOKUP is available in older versions of Excel, unlike XLOOKUP, and we are going to use XLOOKUP in a few more steps. So we're looking at VLOOKUP right now. Now, what are we doing here? Well, we're going to go here into F14. Where is F14? This is my lodging. And lodging is a little tricky because it's not just, the rental car, like the rental car where it's kind of a yes or no situation. Instead, what we've done is we've looked at each one of these cities and we've said some of them are going to have more expensive lodging than others. And so maybe we're going to increase the per diem or we're going to increase the amount that we need on that particular day. And we've created a totally separate table that has that coding. If I've coded Boston as a 3, I know that my lodging cost needs to increase by 150%, or needs to be multiplied by 150%, so 50% more, right? If it's a 2, then it's 125%. If it's a 1, then it's straight cost. It's 100%. And as I fill this lodging in, I don't want to do that manually. I want Excel to fill in and make those calculations for me. And the VLOOKUP table is great for this. I use VLOOKUPs all the time. They're wonderful. Now, I do like Excel to help me with that, so I'm going to go to this insert function, and I'm going to type VLOOKUP. Excel says here it is, and I'm going to click on OK. Now, the first thing, notice I have 3 bolded arguments right here that I have to supply, and I don't have to put anything in this range lookup. And as I click, of course, it tells me. So what am I looking up? I'm looking up the value in B14. This is my code. And where is the table that I'm supposed to look this up in? A8 through B11. A8 through B11. Now, thinking ahead, I'm going to copy this formula to other cells. So I want to lock on to this table. Let's go ahead and make those absolute references. A8 through B11 absolute references. Now I've looked up this value, like 3, underneath city, but what do I want to return? That's what this column index is. Well, I want to return whatever is in column number 2. So this is column 1, this is column 2. So you just simply type the number 2. If there was 10 columns and I wanted the value in the 10th column, I would put the number 10. See how that works? So let's see what it's evaluated here. I'm looking up the number 3. I'm looking it up over here, and you can see it kind of displays it a little strangely, but there it is. And I'm going to return the second value, which in this case for 3 would be 150%, which is the equivalent of the number 1.5. Looks good to me. Click on OK. So, oh, I forgot a step. I'm sorry, I'm not done. Let's continue on with this. It also said that after I look this value up, that I need to multiply this by the estimated lodging, which is what we've already put in cell B6. So here's the base lodging, and I need to make that part of my VLOOKUP formula. No problem. Click on cell F14, click up here at the top, multiply by B6. Thinking ahead, I'm about to copy this to all the other ones. So B6 needs to be an absolute, or at least locked on value. Now I can click enter. That looks a little bit more reasonable. What this tells me is that for Boston, which is a type 3 city in our calculations, we're going to take this base lodging of 900, multiply it by 150%, and so that looks right because it's basically 50% more than 900, so 1350 sounds good. I need to copy this. I don't want to mess up my formatting. Click to select that cell, copy, select the cells where I want to paste, use the drop-down arrow of paste, and paste formulas only. Save. And that, let me double check, that is step 25. On to step 26, we're already at the bottom of this third page. So now it says we're ready to calculate the total expenses for each city. So what are we going to do? Now, I'm going to differ from the instructions. What you could do is click in total cost, and you could use the auto sum button, and then you could copy that formula. But I'll tell you a neat little trick. If you select all of these cells, because you're going to auto sum in each and every one, and there's a pattern here, right? You're going to also auto sum every single value across, so be really careful about this. You want it to be from D14 to G14. Well, let's see if Excel can't figure that out. So I selected where I want the answer, auto sum. Boom. You can only do this if those cells are empty. Okay. Now, of course, I'm going to spot check. First one, D14 through G14. Looks good. What about this one? D15 through G15. D16 through G16. Those look correct. Excellent. Save. So a little shortcut for you. If you're going to put totals at the bottom of a whole bunch of columns, just select those columns, hit auto sum, and then just verify that it's put the correct information in there. That is step 26, which is the bottom of page 3. So let's continue on. We're making fast progress. On the top of the last page, page 4 of the instructions, I'm on step 27. And it looks like we have a little more to fill out in column I. We have some things at the top. Well, we've got something over here. And we have these monthly payments. And so step 27 tells us we're going to start in these monthly payments. So it says you're considering taking out a 1-year loan to pay for your vacation. Oh, I don't know about that, but it says click in cell I-14. So remember, that's not 114, it's I-14. And we're going to use this function that we used in one of the chapters, the payment function. So I'm going to come up here to click this. And if it might be listed there, if not, PMT is the function. You can search for that, find it in your list. Okay. So 3 required values here, and the first one is the rate. Now this is just a little bit tricky because the rate, let me move this over, is right here in I-7. But what kind of rate is it? It's an APR, or an annual percentage rate. And so we're going to pay monthly, so we need a monthly percentage rate. So I need to divide. Since it's annual, I could type in 12, but what if I change my mind later and I'm going to pay every quarter, right? I don't want to do that. I want to use values that are on my page. So I-7, the APR, divided by the number of payments, which is I-8. Thinking ahead, though, I'm going to copy this formula into all these other cells. So I know that I need to make these values absolute. In per, it tells us, is the total number of payments that we're going to make. Well, we would like to pay this off in 1 year, in 12 months. So again, this is what we have here, right there. And thinking ahead, I know that I need to lock that with absolute references. As a reminder, you can press the F4 key, click in that cell name and press F4, and it should add those dollar signs for you. PV is the present value, and they have told us that that is the value in H14. So this is the total cost. Now, thinking ahead, I'm going to copy this formula to each subsequent row. Do I want that to change to H15, H16? I do. So far, so good. I can even start to look at this, and I can see that I'm going to be in debt $183.95 every month. But because I'm in debt, it puts that negative sign there. And the instructions say make sure the result is a positive value. So I need to make something negative, multiply by -1. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to multiply by -1 that present value. That's all. Just a little simple change there. Click OK. Of course, we're going to copy this. We're going to select the values below, and we're going to paste only the formulas. And the next thing is that we're going to look. Now, this is not formatted, as I can see. That looks a little funny, but let me double check. I don't think they did not tell us to format this. So I'm not going to take a step. I think we're going to do some of that later. So we're going to leave that the way it is, but I am going to make sure that my values are correct. And are they reasonable? I mean, these are expensive, this one is more expensive. Yeah. So, okay, that looks good to me. I'm going to save that. That was step 27. Step 28, this is where we're going to start some of our formatting. So it says you decide to format the values in the data set. Now, very important here, they want us to select E15 through I19. So let's look at this. E15, not 14, but 15. It's very common when you format data that the very top row will look a little different because it indicates that these are dollars. So we don't need to have a plethora of dollar signs all over the place. It's okay that just the top row has that dollar sign. So we're formatting that top row differently. So E15, through I19. Double check that. It says we want to apply the column style. That's actually a button that's right here on the bar, so I can click that on the ribbon, I should say. Comma style. Now it does say 0 decimal places, so let's decrease once, twice. Make sure no decimal places. There we go. Now we're going to select and format that top range. So now we're going to select E14 through I14, and we're going to apply the accounting number format. We're also going to have no decimal places. Much better. Very clean, very neat, very nice looking. That's step 28. Save that. On to step 29. Now in step 29, we're going to look here at I2. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to do an average. We're going to do a lowest cost, and we're going to do a highest cost. And this is all part of step 29. Now, what are we doing, average, lowest, and highest of? This total trip cost down here. So I'm going to start out. Here's average. I'm just going to go to my auto sum button, but I'm going to use the little bitty drop down arrow so that I can choose average. It guessed wrong. I'm going to ignore that, and I'm going to select H14 through H19. Press enter, or if you're more comfortable, just click the green check mark. I'm going to click in I3. I'm going up to the auto sum button, and I'm going to click the drop down box. Lowest is minimum, so min. Ignoring what it guessed at, I'm going to select again H14 through H19, green check mark. Click in I4, drop down box of auto sum, max is highest, H14 through H19, green check mark. Save that. Let's double check step 29. Is that everything? I believe it is. On to step 30. Now this is where we're going to use the XLOOKUP. There is one suggestion if you are trying to use a computer with an older version of Excel. Why not log in to office.com? Pull your spreadsheet, open it in there, put it into OneDrive, open it in office.com. The XLOOKUP function is available through that. Now, as a reminder, when you are using the web-based version of these softwares, they are not as powerful. The features are slightly different, which is why I'm not teaching you through that. What I've been showing you is the software that you can download and install from office.com, which is different than using the browser-based version. What would I prefer? Remember, you can use a Southwest laptop loan. You can use a computer at the library, the Academic Support Center, and you can download and install the software. Back to step 30. The lookups section, it says D7 through F8 is designed to enable you to enter a city name, like they have Washington, D.C. right here, and return a corresponding total cost. So whatever they type right here, they want to return the cost of that here in F8. So we're going to click on F8 and we're going to use this XLOOKUP function. Great, great, powerful new function. Click on FX. I'm going to type XLOOKUP. There it is. Click OK. And what do they want? Well, the first thing they want to know is, what do we need to look up? Well, we're going to look up the value in D8. And notice it's not in E, it's in D. So make sure you're clicking D8. Now, thinking ahead, am I going to copy this formula? No. So I don't need to worry about absolute relative references. This is just in this one location. Where am I looking this up? Well, I'm looking this up in A14 through through A19. I was going across. I don't need to do that. Just right here. This is where I'm looking it up. This is this XLOOKUP function. It's telling me Boston, Miami, Orlando. What do you want me to return? Well, I want you to go over here to H14 through H19. This is so cool. So it's not even like VLOOKUP. Here's the difference. VLOOKUP, we would have had to select this entire table, which is fine, and we would have said look up items in column A and return values from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We could do it. It's just different. This is, I think, really cool, more powerful. Now, they did not give us any other optional parameters. We're going to stop with that. It's already telling us that for Washington, D.C., it would return 2,769. That looks good. Click on OK. Excellent. Now, we do want to test it, and they tell us to test it. So in cell D8, I'm going to click there, and I'm going to type Boston. Then I'm going to press the Enter key. Look at that, it updated. So let's check. Here's Boston, 2172. Excellent, looks good. Save that. And that was step 30. So let's go on to step 31. I told you this was a biggie. On the Cities tab, and that is where we are going to do some formatting for printing. So I'm going to go to Page Layout, and they said change this to Landscape. Well, orientation, landscape. Let's do that. They said set a top margin of 1 inch. Well, I've got some margins here. I've got this 1 inch kind of all the way around. I could set, should I set all the margins? Makes me nervous. Maybe I should go to 1 inch or to custom. Let me pull my, when I open custom, notice it opened this page setup dialog box. I go into this all the time. This is where I go to page setup in the launcher typically. But on this margins tab, they said my top margin needs to be 1 inch. Now, left, right, bottom are not 1 inch, but they didn't tell us to do that, so I'm going to trust them. I'm going to take them at their word here. And they also said that we need to center the worksheet horizontally. So still on this margins tab, horizontally. Select that. Click OK. That was step 31. Double check that. So landscape, 1 inch top margin, center on the page. And guess what the final step is? We're going to submit this. Little nervous. I hope I interpreted the steps correctly. I hope I didn't miss any steps. If I did, I will note it in the video to try to bring your attention to that. I'm going to pause the video while I open my IT lab so that I can submit. Again, I need to put this note in the video. For some class sections, you will be opening up the separate website, myitlab.com, to submit. For later sections, hopefully starting now in spring 2023, If you're taking this class in 2023 or beyond, then you will be using links from within Pause. Please use the method that you have been told to use. Thank you. I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to go to submit. So I'm showing you this in my IT lab, and even if you're using this in Pause, using links in Pause, this is important for you to see, because I really, folks, I'm always trying to make this class better and more effective and convenient, and I'm just trying to support you and your success, because I want that, and I try to work hard to do that. So I want you to understand that when you click the link to open this assignment, you may only see this one assignment. Don't be fooled by that. This is the capstone. Remember the caution that there's two parts to this assignment. When I first come into this assignment, notice that this quiz is grayed out. As much as I try to click on this, it is not going to open. And it's not going to open until this status down here says passed. Passed is 70% or above. Now, you're not even worried about that, because your goal is 100%. You're going to show me you got this, you have learned, you know what you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and click the grader part of this. Of course, you know, you're well versed in downloading your files. I'm going to upload mine, so choose file, and look at that. I almost messed up just then. This is Excel 4 folder, and I almost grabbed that Excel worksheet to submit it, and I would have gotten, like, I don't know, like a 1 maybe. Don't do that. Go back. This is where that organization is key. Excel Capstone. Make sure you're picking your Capstone file. Click OK. Upload. Get success on that upload. Okay, folks, submit for grading, please. I'm going to give it a minute. Yes! Yay! I have to say I was worried about a couple parts of that. We did it. We did it in one attempt. Not only did we get passed, we have 100%. And guess what you need to do next? And I'm not going to do it with you, I'm sorry, but you're going to click this quiz, you're going to open it, and you're going to answer some questions. And you're going to use the spreadsheet that you just created to answer those questions. They're always based, with these capstone projects, the quizzes are always based on the work that you just did. So you have to do the work first. So good luck to you on that. I want to see 100% everywhere. We do this, we did this together, and you can do it. Thank you, folks. And we'll pick up with PowerPoint, and we'll return to the regular style of going back and forth between the instructions, so that it is much more of a teaching and learning. The capstone is just a little better, and I hope that this worked for you.